The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today is Thursday, joined by Alpha. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, baby.
All right. All blacked out there with your white chair. Your white chair reminds me of a Tesla for some reason. Don't know why.
I need to get a new chair. This chair sucks. She looks pretty. She looks pretty, but for posture and comfort, no. They lied.
How did your chiropractor visit go?
It was pretty freaking awesome. I go to my second appointment today. They're actually doing a series of 5 appointments for me. They when they did the X-ray, he showed me like what a good spine looks like, and then he showed me a picture of what like a really bad spine looks like and pointed it out. He goes, "Now I'm going to show you yours." He goes, "You tell me where the concerns are." And of course, my lower back was just like, it was bad, man. It was very, very, very compressed. And then a little bit right about the mid part, you know, where that little curvature is. And he says, right there, he goes, that's exactly where sciatic nerve runs through. He goes, but it's correctable. He goes, there's seriously things we could do. He goes, so.
Cool. You will learn to love your chiropractor, my friend. You will learn to love him or her.
It was a combination. But the dude was the one that was doing like the muscle, whatever you call them, the moves. And he has my head. He's just like, yeah. He goes, do you have a little tension right here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, he just kung fu'd my neck, bro.
when they first did that to me, it scared the shit out of me. And I'm like, I'm a kid of the 80s and the 90s. And I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger doing that to like everybody, right? That was like the move in 90s action movies, was he just sneak up behind you and just like that.
Dude,
and I'm like,
that's exactly. I went straight to Lethal Weapon. I was like, he just lethal weapon me, man. But no, we were good. And did some red light therapy. There's this table that they put you on. They strap you on, your face down. Then it elevates up. It's called a decompression table, and then this bottom part starts to pull on you. That was amazing.
Yeah,
I walked out of there just like, he's like, you feel a little sore, and I walked out. I was like, nah, I'm good. Later on that day, I was like, whoa. It's like, dang, okay.
Welcome to the club, my friend. I told you that stuff is great. And the best part is, you know, like if you ever tweak something just a little bit, just call them up and be like, hey, emergency. And usually they can get you in because they can, once you get on the adjustments, it only takes like 5-10 minutes to do an adjustment. Right. And so they can usually, at least mine can squeeze me in anytime. And fantastic, man. It's so good knowing that we can work around that kind of stuff. So, all right, guys. Well, welcome to the show. We've only got Alpha here for a little bit this morning, but we will get into as much as we can. But before we do that, let's jump into our first sponsor.
What up, Badlanders? Are you ready to rock something new in 2026? Well, as always, we got you covered with the Rise Badlands Native Collection. Built from the rich tones and rugged terrain of the Dakotas, equal parts beautiful and brutal. Old roots, new vibe. Whether you got gators in your backyard or you have to take a bush plane to the post office, Badlanders are worldwide. Different dirt, same tribe. Speaking of different dirt, the ghost of base Patrick Henry designed a plan for the border wall that he actually sent to the White House. It's friggin' hilarious. Now you can get it on a shirt, hoodie, and more. And don't forget, every order throws fuel on the fire of the Made in USA parallel economy. So grab something now at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
TV/rise. And then, guys, after the show, get on over to Badlands Shop. You might be surprised at what you've been missing, from thoughtful gifts and unique finds to everyday household essentials and personal care must-haves. There's truly something for everyone at the Badlands Shop. But here's what makes it different. Every single purchase you make is so much more than just buying stuff. You're investing directly in the movement. You're empowering America First businesses, lifting up fellow Badlanders, and supporting the creators who are building this community with us. Thank you for being a part of this. Your support means absolutely everything. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/shop or click shop on the main menu at badlandsmedia.tv and discover your new favorite brands. Again, head over to badlandsmedia.tv/shop. Dude, I'm dying.
He's a medic. Medic.
Corman up. Corman up. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know what's going on there. Speaking of Corman up, shameless plug. One of my brothers from the Marine Corps is going to be joining us on Sit Rep tonight to talk about his new book. Some of you guys have bought it.
Nice.
Yeah, looking forward to that conversation tonight. So he called me before the show, so he might actually be listening. So Danny, good to see you, brother. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Let's get into the news for today, the big news of the day. It broke yesterday while we were on air, but we didn't really get to unpack it. We just kind of got to surface level it. Actually, we're not going to get into that yet. Hold on. First, we got to talk about this TPS thing. From The Guardian here, U.S. Supreme Court conservatives seem to favor ending TPS for Haitians and Syrians. Let me see if I could figure out why this thing's being weird and wonky. So yesterday they had the hearing. We've kind of talked about this hearing for a while, the TPS status for the Haitians and Syrians that Kristi Noem refused to renew. And of course, the left is freaking out about that. They've had protective status since, I think, 2010 for the Haitians and 2012 for the Syrians. So let's get into the arguments that were made yesterday, or the overview. I listened to the hearing, and I almost tuned out once Solicitor General John Sauer said, this is not eligible for judicial review. And I thought in my head immediately, what the hell are we doing here? And I kind of tuned out and zonked out. But it says, during the arguments, justices in the conservative-leaning majority appeared sympathetic to the Trump administration's attempt to strip humanitarian protections for the Syrians and Haitians in this case. Oral arguments focused on whether the executive branch's decision to terminate the TPS for Syria and Haiti can even be reviewed by the judicial branch of the U.S. government. Solicitor General John Sauer argued that the way TPS legislation was written, it prevented the judiciary from reviewing and striking down the DHS's decision to terminate. Last year, the Supreme Court allowed the administration to strip the status for more than 300,000 Venezuelans under the court's emergency docket. Nearly 1.3 million people were TPS holders in the U.S. at the start of the second Trump administration. That's an important number. Keep that in mind. 1.3 million, okay? And we're going to play a clip here from Fox News in just a minute of Brandon Gill talking about this, but keep that number in mind, 1.3 million. Sauer argued that the 1990 TPS legislation allowed the executive branch, including the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, to decide on the program based on its own discretion. Courts could not second guess its TPS decisions. Anna Reyes, the federal judge in D.C. that blocked the ending of TPS for Haitians, accused the Trump administration in part of being motivated by racial animus. Justice Ketanji Brown, this right here shocked me. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said on Wednesday, quote, "Now we have a president saying at one point that Haiti is a, quote, filthy, dirty, and disgusting shithole country. I'm quoting him." KJB says, "What's wrong with that, Alpha?"
As far as
well, there's no official record of him saying that. Everything about him saying it's a shithole country specifically was hearsay. It was all from a Democrat aide who was alleged to have been in the meeting, and none of it was confirmed. Now, Trump does in 2025 say, why do we always get immigrants from shithole countries? But he doesn't explicitly say Haiti and Syria. And so, Ketanji Brown Jackson is referring to that, the Oval Office secret meeting where they came out and said, Trump said Haiti was a shithole country. Well, I mean, news alert, it is, because we've destroyed it. But yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's still accurate. The information itself is accurate.
Yeah, it may not be the best delivery, but we didn't elect President Trump for his eloquent delivery.
Mean tweets was one of the things that we loved about him.
Yeah, I have the campaign shirt 2024. Mean. Unfortunately, the other one's not true. Mean tweets and cheap gas, but we're not getting the cheap gas right now. It'll come.
Yeah, that's why I don't know why does everybody get offended about mean tweets again. It's like this is what we demanded, and now you guys are mad because you made fun of the Pope. Get out of here.
Well, there's another article on the hearing from Reuters saying that they're leaning towards the TPS being upheld. There's really nothing new in this. I did like this part right here. It says lower courts ruled that administration officials failed to follow the required protocols. Okay, so again, lower courts ruled, and I'm going to show you in a second the actual law. Lower courts ruled that the administration officials failed to follow the required protocols to assess conditions in a country before revoking its designation. The consultation consisted only of a State Department official replying to the Homeland Security Department official's email saying that there were, quote, no foreign policy concerns with ending the designations. Quote, there was some consultation, Alito told Aruluananthem, that's the lawyer's name for the plaintiffs in this case, Aruluananthem. I don't know how to say that name, but quote, it was very brief, but maybe it was not what one would hope for, but still. Okay, so let's jump over to the law itself from Cornell's law page right here. Alpha, read the part highlighted in red about the termination of TPS.
There is no judicial review of any determination of the Attorney General with respect to the designation or termination or extension of a designation of a foreign state under this subsection.
Case closed. Why are we wasting time with this? There is no judicial review. So even if you believe,
they said that in the beginning.
That's exactly. That's when I tuned out. I'm like, this is fundamentally like an open and shut case. Why are we arguing this?
No, but I mean, even Trump's team came out and said that in the very beginning.
I'm with you. This makes no sense that the Supreme Court is wasting its time on this. It's going to create, this is just like the Virginia case where it's a win-win, right? Because if the Supreme Court says, yeah, you know what, that part where it says there's no judicial review that Congress passed, we're going to tell Congress to F off, and we're going to go ahead and insert ourselves in this case, like the federal judge did in D.C., Anna Reyes. We're going to go ahead and insert ourselves in this case and ignore the law that says this is beyond judicial review. And again, the reasoning for that is because perhaps the executive is privy to more information than the judiciary is. They know the context better than anybody else because they're the executive branch. They're the ones dealing with the foreign policy, right? The judiciary does not deal with that. But I mean, the law is clear. Are they challenging the law? No, they're challenging that this was done on racial animus, that this was done because Trump is a racist. This is insane to me. And there's next to no shot. This will be a 6-3 decision, but there's next to no shot that this gets upheld.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I don't get the racial part out of it. If it's a group of people coming from a specific region, then of course you're going to identify them by that region. There's no way around it. That doesn't make it racist. Now, if he comes out and says that country is a shithole, that's still not racist. I'm telling you, man, it was a loss from the beginning for them.
Yeah,
and they know it. They knew they were never going. Well, I won't say they never going to. They knew the likelihood of them winning was slim to none, but it was going to slow the progress of deportations, or their hopes was deter him from doing it. This way, they could stick with the lines that you see, fake mag out there. He doesn't have great deportation numbers, which he does, especially when you include the numbers of self-deportations. But it was to feed that narrative. Oh, look, he failed on a promise. That's the whole purpose of what this was done for.
So this TPS status for Haiti, I think it was 2010 around the earthquake, natural disaster. And apparently a natural disaster means, hey, you guys can all come over and stay at my house forever. Right. That's how that works, I guess. Like, imagine that scenario. Like, we always take the macro and break it down to the micro. Like, imagine your house catches on fire, right? And your house burns down and your neighbor's like, hey, we got you, man. Like, you can come over and stay with us until you're able to get your house, back built and in order. And then 10 years later, well, actually 16 years later, you're still living with your neighbor and your neighbor's like, bro, you got to get the out, man. Like, you can't stay here forever. Eventually you have to rebuild your own home. It may not be as nice as our home. It may not be, you might not like it as nice as our home. We may not be feeding you every night for dinner, right? You might have to actually buy your own food and all that stuff, but you can't live here forever. And that's exactly what this is.
You can't evict me. You're racist.
You're only doing it because I'm white. But actually, that segues into my next clip here. The you're only doing this because you're racist. But just real quick, I want to touch on this. Biden renewed both the TPS status for Syria's in 2012 was because of a civil war, which also we started, right? We started, through certain assets, 3-letter agencies. But Joe Biden renewed both of these under like a general umbrella clause of, well, the country's still not doing so great. And so they can stay here. It has nothing to do with the earthquake. That's, a decade or more than a decade removed. So we're not keeping them here because of the earthquake. You've had 15 years, 16 years to recover from that. Joe Biden just basically said, yeah, your country's really not that great, so you can stay here. That is dangerous right there. If that's the precedent, that's the ruling that should have been challenged if you're going to challenge one. But again, not subject to judicial review. So that brings me to this clip here, which, by the way, that's the guy arguing for the plaintiffs, and his name is Jeffrey Pipoli, and I'm just going to call him Pip because no more fitting name could be made for a guy that looks like that. Like that smirk, he looks like an emoji. Somebody turn him into an emoji. All right, let's play this clip of him arguing with Justice Alito.
Isn't it the case that TPS was terminated for quite a list of countries? I can't seem to find the particular page of the transcript where the district court goes through them all. And yes, none of those is a Nordic country, and I don't like dividing up the people of the world arbitrarily into 3 racial groups. But you say they're all non-white, and that's the distinguishing characteristic.
That is the distinguishing characteristic that the district court held. But I would emphasize, Justice Alito, that
but do you think that if you put Syrians, Turks, Greeks, and other people who live around the Mediterranean in a lineup, do you think you could say those people are that all of them, are they all non-white?
I understand that Syrians, I think, may be classified as white for purposes of the State Department, or for under certain government, certain government programs. But again, I think race is, I think, you'd have to poll the public to know what they think the race of a Syrian is. I certainly think they're not white.
Poll the American people?
Well,
poll the public. Do you guys think Syrians are black, white, brown?
Bro,
all right, let's keep going. This is hilarious, dude.
Do they think Syrians are white?
I wouldn't think that most would, Justice Alito.
Really?
I really don't.
How about Turks?
I honestly haven't considered what racial component I would sort Turks into.
How about Greeks?
I don't know the answer to that either.
How about Southern Italians?
Well, certainly 120 years ago, when we had our last wave of European immigration, Southern Italians were not considered white. So I think our concept of these things evolves over time.
How about Spanish?
Yes, I'm a minority. I'm Sicilian, bro. I'm a minority. I'm like 90% Sicilian. There we go. This is so stupid, man. What's up, my brown brother?
Think about the money that was invested.
I know, man.
Into his education.
And
he got that job because, he was considered the best.
No, he was considered the only person that was dumb enough to take up an argument where the law explicitly says no judicial review.
I wish that was the case, bro, but you know how many of them Obama attorneys probably were fighting for that?
You look at a case like this and before the Supreme Court here and in quick time, right? And then you look at like Texas v. Pennsylvania when Ken Paxton brought the case about the 2020 election, and the Supreme Court refused to hear that. And like that is just kind of the situation that we're in with the judiciary, even the Supreme Court. And that was the what do you call it? Jurisdiction. That's the origin of a case between two states is the Supreme Court. It goes straight to the Supreme Court, and they refuse to hear it. But they're hearing this case, right? Something that's just so stupid. And of course, this one had to work its way up through the district court. So this isn't a slight against the Supreme Court. It's against the district courts, which we've talked about ad nauseum and how weaponized they've become, especially during Trump's second administration here. But you go back and make the comparison between all the cases that were brought for the 2020 election and the legislative issues, the Second Amendment issues. Oh yeah, COVID, the censorship, all of these cases that have been brought and they're dismissed on standing, procedural grounds, latches, all sorts of other, excuses that they come up with. But this case
they latch
somehow
on.
Makes it through. That's glaring, dude. Glaring. Let's get back into this hearing this clip because Alito is just bodying Pip right now.
Spaniards.
I think same answer. About 120 years ago, I don't think they were considered white.
You have a really large, you have a really broad definition of who's white and who's not white. As I said, I don't like dividing the people of the world into these groups.
I understand. I would say that even under this court's rationality jurisprudence, if you look at cases like Moreno, it is not necessary for us to get strict scrutiny to win here. Because irrespective of how you do the classification at issue here, under those courts, under those decisions, under those precedents, bare dislike of an unpopular group is a sufficient basis to find that rational basis is not even satisfied.
I mean, they're DOA. This thing has zero shot, in my opinion, of making it through. But can you imagine, like, the argument that 120 years ago we labeled Italians and Spaniards as not white, but now apparently we do, and like, how does that change the makeup of Sicily, of southern Italy, Sardinia? It hasn't changed. It's still the same people. Same with the Spaniards. I mean, obviously you get, kind of a melt there, but that's crazy. And the other crazy
thing is his vision of all this is exactly the reason these people need to be deported. 120 years ago, it looked like this.
I was just going to go there.
The judge should have said, and why doesn't it look like that now? I would have loved to see him answer. Well, so maybe our president is trying to protect what this country looks like. That ain't racist.
Exactly. That's when you hear them say something like that, when you hear him say 120 years ago, they might not have been white, but now I guess we consider them white. Either we now have changed kind of the standard of what we dictate race as, which that makes no sense, right? We can just change it however we feel. No, I mean, you would have to assume that there's some sort of influx of migration, something that changed it one way or the other. But here's the thing is 120 years ago, we considered Italy not white, right? Well, if you asked if you asked Italy 120 years ago, what an Italian in Italy, what do you consider America? They would probably say white. If you ask them today, there's no way that they would say, what does an American look like? They wouldn't say that. I don't think. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they do, like Caucasian, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, this case is
anybody who wants to argue against mass deportations. Why should we be okay with it? Thanksgiving. That's my answer. Thanksgiving. Go ask the Indians if they could go back in time, if they had the ability to build walls and deportation, if they would have done it. They didn't have the ability. And what happened? Massive amounts of them were murdered and their land was taken. Now, that's part of the history of this country. We're trying to prevent that from happening to us now.
Yep. History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. So let's play this clip here of Brandon Gill. And I mean, obviously listen to what Brandon Gill's saying, but pay attention to some of the graphics that they're putting up here in the background.
We are a nation of big hearts, but we're also a nation of people with brains. And we've had many, many years of open borders, and this is part of it, that has ravaged our civilization, that has brought crime and drugs and all kinds of social dysfunction into American communities, who has made bringing our social programs down, making our schooling much poorer for our own children. Our goal as elected representatives of the U.S. should be to look out for our people, American citizens, not for illegal aliens or foreigners who should have never come into our country in the first place. The reality is that 65% of Haitian non-citizen headed households in the United States right now are on welfare. That does not make the United States stronger in any sense whatsoever, no matter what the Democrats like to believe or like to tell you. So we ought to look at this rationally and say that we should be looking out for our people first. And I think that whenever you do, the obvious answer is that we need to end these programs. They were never designed to be amnesty, and that's what they've become. And we need to abide by the law in the United States and tell these people to go home.
So look at these numbers that they have up here for U.S. TPS protections. Venezuela, 605,000. Haiti, 330,000. El Salvador, 170,000. Ukraine, 101,000. Honduras, 51,000. Syria, 6,100. And then you look at, where was the next graphic right here? 65% of Haitian non-citizen households are on welfare.
Oh, and the other thing too, I don't want people to get twisted and be in. Those are the numbers specifically for TPS persons. That's not the number for total people that are in this country, because that number doesn't include the ones that are undocumented, the ones that didn't come under that protected status.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to conflate those two, but
no. I just don't want people to think that, I thought it'd be more. It is more. These are just the numbers that are official counts for TPS.
That's crazy, man.
And those numbers are still insane.
And
600,000 from Venezuela.
Well, so we saw in The Guardian the 1.3 million number, right? Now let's just say, because the Haitians are 65% on welfare, right? And this is Medicaid, Medicare, Medicaid mainly, not Medicare so much. Medicaid, although by now 16 years, some of them might qualify for Medicare. But so
dang, that's sad. That's true, but dang, that's sad.
Isn't it? You got people now that have been working here in the United States long enough as Haitian TPS, individuals, that they're pretty close to being eligible for Medicare. That's crazy. But all the other welfare that's taken there, and granted, you never want to see anybody suffer, but 65%, we've got our own American citizens born and raised here, assimilated to our culture, people that are, fundamentally American,
or suffering,
that are getting crushed right now. And we're seeing, the fraud in Minneapolis, the Somali fraud in Minneapolis, other fraud in Minneapolis, California. Those are only the two states that we've looked at so far. I think we've looked at more. The only ones that have been disclosed so far. And you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars that is going into this. Meanwhile, we're drowning in debt, getting absolutely crushed by debt. And we're funding 1.3 million people. 65% of that is, somewhere around 700 to 800,000 people that are receiving benefits from this.
The thing is they're don't want to pay for it. They want you, the taxpayer, to pay for it. What happened when you had Texas and Florida were shipping the illegals over to what's that place where Obama and all them live? Real fancy.
Oh, Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Yeah. When they started shipping them over there, and what they do on buses? No. We got to send y'all down to the projects.
Whoa. We meant you could stay, just not here.
and that's exactly the case here. Listen, I'm with you. Nobody wants to see anybody suffer. 100%. I understand that. But if suffering is inevitable, then I prefer an Haitian suffer over an American. And I don't care who gets mad about that.
100%. And you know, not to mention, at some point you have to rip off you have to rip the suckling pig away from its mother's teat, right? And send them back and let them live their own life. These people, you know, one of the arguments that we covered early on was, hey, these Haitians, they're surgeons and doctors and engineers and all these people. That's great. Haiti needs that so bad right now. They need those things right now. If you keep those people over here, you're doing an injustice to the people in Haiti that are suffering right now, that are getting eaten by barbecue. Remember barbecue? Oh, I miss barbecue. Remember barbecue?
I do.
The gang leader that was like eating people, apparently, allegedly. I miss barbecue. Whatever happened to him? Somebody do a welfare check on barbecue. Make sure he's good.
When you actually, we and Colonel did a show on him. We actually go look at the history of him. He is not what we were told.
What do you mean? I think I remember hearing something like this, but refresh me.
He was not some cannibal bad dude. He was actually a dude trying to fight the resistance, and we painted him as that picture so we can go and destroy him.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, that's the status quo. That's the modus operandi of the CIA run Mockingbird media, to portray somebody as something so you get all pissed off and angry, and in actuality he's the resistance. He is the guy that's trying to put things on the right track and stop the globalist agenda being perpetuated in Haiti, or not perpetuated, being milked out of Haiti. So, all right, let's get into the Louisiana decision here. Barack Obama putting this out. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities, so long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias. And it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy. So let's just stop right there. Let's go ahead and look at the map here. Washington Examiner has this map up of Louisiana. Have you seen this map yet?
I have not.
So this is the congressional districts in Louisiana right now. There's 2 blue districts, and then I think six red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red districts. This is how it looks right now, and this is how it's going to look after Louisiana versus Calais. And tell me who is gerrymandering. So you know what gerrymandering is? It's essentially redrawing the districts in order to, you grab a little from here and a little from there, and we got to connect the dots. So let's go ahead and connect these two by a corridor. And then we've got this segment over here and this segment over here. We've joined them. That's a district. Tell me who's the one doing the gerrymandering. This is before and after. Now just remember, they took a district and they drew it from up here in Shreveport all the way down here to Baton Rouge in order to get that representation. Because if you draw normal, compact districts,
crazy, dude.
That is one of the craziest things that you could ever see right there, guys. In terms of making a claim that it's the Republicans that are gerrymandering. No, the gerrymandering came when the the Voting Rights Act was interpreted as saying that you have to have majority minority districts. You can't draw your districts based on race. But then they literally drew their districts based on race. It's just not in the way that they consider to be racist. They're the opposite. They're racist against, I guess, whites. I don't know. I think it's so stupid. I think the idea that blacks vote a certain way and whites vote a certain way is fundamentally retarded. But that is gerrymandering right there, guys. There is no clearer case. And speaking of gerrymandering for Obama, this is his state here, Illinois. And you want to talk about gerrymandering here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And look at the 17th district, Keck. Starts up here at Winnebago, all right, up here in the very top of the state. You see my mouse up there?
I do.
It comes all the way to the left, drops down, runs along the border, comes back across, jumps down the middle, and then ends up in the middle of the state. That's gerrymandered. How about 13? Starts in Macoupin, starts down here, runs up in through Springfield, through Macon, and then all the way up to Champaign. I mean, this is, how do people not see the real gerrymandering taking place here? 15th isn't much better, by the way. Comes all the way around. But the 15th is divided by the 13th, which cuts through here. This is mostly, rural area out here. So when you see this, I mean, the garbage that they've been putting out about, it's all the Republicans. This is the last thing I'll show you guys right here on the numbers. We'll get into a couple articles about what's going to happen as a result of this. I've talked about this ad nauseum on this show. I saw this in response to the Obama fact-checked true. Massachusetts, 36% Republican, 0 seats. Connecticut, 42% Republican, 0 seats. Maine, 46% Republican, 0 seats. New Mexico, 46 Republican, 0 seats. New Hampshire, 48% Republican, 0 seats. The craziest thing about New Hampshire is they have a Republican governor. This is the second consecutive Republican governor, meaning a statewide race. A majority of the state elected a Republican. Okay. Now they have a Republican district in New Hampshire. There's only 2. And they voted for a Democrat, allegedly. Rhode Island, 42% Republican, 0 seats. I think they only have 1 congressional seat, so that's, kind of irrelevant. Vermont, 32% Republican, 0 seats. Hawaii, 38% Republican, 0 seats. Delaware, 42% Republican, 0 seats.
That's a significant portion of the population, bro.
Well, it's not that. It's actually not that big. So, I mean, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont are New England, right? And in total, New England makes up, I think it's 21 congressional seats and 27 electoral votes when you factor in the senators from each state. But there's 21 congressional seats in New England. They have 0 Republicans, but they have an average Republican turnout as a collective of 42% in presidential elections consecutive in 2020 and 2024. 42% Republican votes, 0 Republican representatives. How is that a representative, a representative constitution, a constitutional republic? It's not. It's gerrymandering. It's clearly gerrymandering, but it's only cool when we do it in the name of race, I guess. The crazy thing. So let's get into what this implications this could have. So Newsweek put this out: how the Supreme Court's Louisiana decision could boost the GOP in the midterms. It's not going to be as much as a lot of people think, but 2028 and 2030 are going to be significant. For the 2026 midterm, the impact is limited by timing. For 2028 and beyond, the door is wide open. Florida moved instantly. As soon as the decision was announced, within hours, the House passed the new map, followed by the Senate vote. And now DeSantis, of course, will sign that in. That will give the Republicans 4 additional seats. Louisiana's May 16th primary is days away, so that's probably not going to get a new map put out. Georgia and Alabama have already started early voting. North Carolina, Mississippi, and Texas primaries have already been held. And then we jump over to Politico. They got another article about the impact. Top GOP candidates, elected officials, and party chairs across Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and South Carolina called for special sessions in their states to dismantle the minority-majority districts and create more aggressive gerrymanders benefiting their party. I love how they call it gerrymanders. Redistricting. It remains unclear how much success the GOP will have in ramming through the maps before the midterms. Many filing deadlines have passed, and primaries are rapidly approaching in states like Louisiana. And even redistricting wins across all the states may not be enough to save Republicans from the treacherous midterm cycle. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey rejected calls from within her party to call for a special session on Wednesday, citing a separate court ruling that prevents the state from redrawing the maps until 2030. So, in essence, in total, we're going to see probably about 24 to 27 seats flip as a result of this. Benny Thompson, bye-bye. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her district's going to get eroded down to nothing. She may run for the 20th, which is my district, so Wasserman Schultz was the representative in my district. And then when they redrew the maps the last time, she left my district because it had a lot more of, the population was a lot more like not suburban, but urban, a lot more of the kind of the suburbs, which where I live, the suburbs they feed Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is the major metropolitan area. That's where all the, the elites live in Fort Lauderdale in certain areas. I mean, there's also slums in Fort Lauderdale, but she went over and ran in Fort Lauderdale mainly and left my district and Sheriffless McCormick. She wouldn't have been able to beat Sheriffless McCormick, I don't think, because of the black population in my district. But Wasserman Schultz has the big Jewish population in Fort Lauderdale and area out there. So she moved out there. So now she's going to have to come back out to my district in the 20th and compete out here. And we'll see what happens. But big win, man.
California's going to pick up a bunch of seats doing this too, isn't it? Because I remember when I heard that the number was pretty insane.
Yep. It's going to be fantastic. And then the last thing, we pointed this out yesterday, and then we'll move on from the courts. We pointed this out yesterday, but Harvard, the Harvard CAPS poll is putting out 50-50 right now going into the congressional midterms, into the midterm elections. 50-50. We'll see what happens, but there we go. So now we get to play. We're going to talk about a sponsor, but then we get to inject everybody back with hopium, Alpha, because they want to hear the things that make them feel good. And so we're going to talk about the Comey indictment next, because I promised that we'd get your take.
What do you mean the things that make them feel good?
Oh, we're gonna fight over this one, dude.
Oh.
We're gonna fight over this one for sure. But let's hit that sponsor, and then we'll get into the friction. Let me get this pulled up here. There we go. All right, guys, they can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards and lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold, on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when the traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. Now that's power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. All right. Illinois Danny cage match. Here we go. All right. So let's play this clip here. And I know we got Alpha for a limited time here, so I'm going to speed it up to 1 1/4. Okay. That's not crazy, but it's a 4-minute clip of Todd Blanche with Major Garrett. Major Garrett is a flaming establishment hack. Okay. Can't stand Major Garrett, but let's listen to what Todd Blanche says here about the indictment.
Do you have proof that the former FBI director knowingly and willfully threatened the life of the president?
The grand jury indicted Mr. Comey yesterday. Grand juries hear evidence. That evidence is not something that anybody can talk about today. But when you talk about whether proof exists, the proof that we have is in the fact that the grand jury returned an indictment. Remember, that is not the Department of Justice charging James Comey with a crime. That is a grand jury returning a 2-count indictment.
Let's do a compare and contrast, Mr. Blanche. In 2022, someone well-known in right-wing circles, Jack Poskovic, posted on X, 8646. He did not take it down. He did not apologize. Mr. Comey has done both of those things. The Biden Justice Department never prosecuted him. By the standard of that grand jury, Jack Poskovic should face charges as well. Will the Justice Department pursue that case? Because they sound very similar.
That's just completely not true. That's not how a grand jury does its work. They don't just look at a single image and then say, okay, yes, we'll indict, or okay, no, we won't indict. They do an investigation. This conduct took place in May of last year, May 15th. It has been almost a year. I assure you, the FBI, the Secret Service, and the U.S. Attorney's Office have not been sitting around doing nothing. They have been investigating. I have no idea whether there was an investigation into the other times that post has been made and whether that investigation yielded different results. This investigation that we undertook resulted in a 2-count indictment. So You cannot compare, well, what happened last time, what happened this time. Every investigation is different. You know that. The American people know that. A lot of factors go into whether somebody should or should not be charged. The mere fact that there's a similar photo posted or similar statement made, that's true. Every day there's comments made about President Trump, threats made against President Trump. Every one of those are not indicted. It depends on the facts of every case.
Mr. Blanche, you lived this history much more than I did, but I'm going to paraphrase what you said about the hush money case that was brought in New York. You said at the time, supposedly serious people were bringing unserious charges and warping the language and the facts and the law because there was a political imperative beyond that. Are you telling the American people this morning that this is a serious case and this is a serious set of charges and that laws and facts are not being warped to carry out a political agenda?
Look at the indictment. That's not for me to decide. That's for the American people to decide. And if anybody in this country thinks, especially what happened over the past couple of years with respect to President Trump, that it is okay for anybody to threaten the president of the United States, that it is okay to threaten the president of the United States and then have the media or others say, well, that's not serious, then we have a bigger problem than I even imagined in this country. Of course it's serious when you threaten the president of the United States, and anybody that tries to put forward some narrative that this is just about seashells or something to the contrary is missing the point. You cannot threaten the president of the United States. That's not my decision. That's Congress's decision in a law that they passed. And so, yes, of course this is a serious case.
Mr. Blanche, did the president of the United States in any way direct you to pursue this matter?
Of course not. Absolutely, positively not. And there's no suggestion that that's the case that happened. And the fact that we're doing our work, this is not something that just happened the past couple of weeks. This is something that has been investigated for nearly a year now. And the results of that investigation is a grand jury returned an indictment.
Critics of you and this administration, Mr. Blanche, have suggested this is an audition to become the nominee to be Attorney General. Is it?
I don't even know what that means. We work hard every single day. The Department of Justice returned over 100 indictments across this country every single day, making this country safe. And so this narrative, this idea out there that somehow I'm auditioning, I've worked with President Trump for many, many years. I don't audition for this job. I've been the Deputy Attorney General for over a year. Okay, this is not an audition.
And you are confident this case will result in a conviction?
I do not comment on convictions, and no prosecutor ever should. What I'm confident about is that there's been a 2-count indictment returned, and Mr. Comey will get his day in court.
All right. So there we have it from Todd Blanche. Not much there. It's a grand jury indictment. So we're not going to get a criminal complaint. We're not going to get a probable cause affidavit.
Not much there.
No, there's. I mean, I understand what he's saying.
Listen to what I listened to.
Oh, see, this is where we're going to lose it. This is where we're going to lose it. Prima facie, on its face, that indictment is garbage.
Bullshit.
That indictment is garbage.
Make your argument. Make your argument, because I'm about to destroy it.
On its face,
yeah,
what does that indictment say in there? On its face. Now, hold on. So I understand.
You have one count of threatening the president. You have count two
no threat to the president there.
There's no threat to the president. 8647.
No, he didn't make that. He's posting a picture.
Let me tell you, there's absolutely a threat. The count two is what cuddles count one to prove that case. Just so everybody understands in the audience, because it sounds like we've been getting blackpilled over here. This is a solid, easy win. And I'm going to tell you how I know. This case is argued thousands of times a year. And I know because I've charged this case. If you have a gang in your city, I guarantee you'll find hundreds of counts of this exact case. And what am I talking about? In gang case, and the reason I'm bringing up gang cases is because the same defense Comey's going to make is the same defense that gang members make.
Okay, so hold on, pause. Since you're going to bring in gang members, and granted, I understand people
understand why.
Hold on, I understand people are going to say James Comey's a gang member. I understand. No, I'm saying they're in a roundabout way. He's a dirty cop. He's part of the deep state. I get all of that.
That's not the argument I'm making.
You're going to make knowledge of what 86 means. I understand that's what you're going to say. That gang members know what 86 means. Comey knows what 86 means.
But that's not the argument I'm making.
Okay, good.
I'm going to make the argument that James Comey was a phenomenal FBI director, and that he has no criminal history, and that he's the opposite of what a gang would be for this argument. What I'm trying to say is when gang members go out there and they either write the graffiti or they take a picture of someone who wrote graffiti and they post it on their social media, 86 Casper or 187 Dopey or 8612. 12 means cops, folks, for those of you that don't know. One of those cases, one of those charges that's brought up against them is the threat. Because in the gang community, this is a part where I agree with you. In the gang community, 86, 187, there's certain terms out there that community knows exactly what it means. So that they're already being engaged in a different scope. And we use this all the time in gang injunctions. The defense that they make is that's not what I intended it to mean. This is the same thing Comey's going to do. I just posted it because I like graffiti. I just posted it because I like the style that they wrote in. I just posted it because it looked like art. Never has that defense ever held up. There's already thousands of precedents. Now with Comey, the prosecution's argument is going to be, you have a gang FBI division that you sign off on their training. You sign off on their cases. As a matter of fact, you sign awards for them. How do I know? Because there's one hanging on the back wall behind this green screen for me with James Comey's name on it. So I know there's at least one, but there's thousands of them. He doesn't get to make the argument of, oh, I didn't know that 86 meant to, put a contract on him and take him out. He doesn't get to make that argument because he has knowledge by his signature that's exactly what it makes by the very institution that he was in. And the reason I bring up that argument is because you see people saying they need to go after Krasenstein. Like they said, you need to go after Papadopoulos or Sobek is no, because you would have to be able to prove that they weren't a layman, that they had the knowledge of Comey, and that'll be a hard one. You're not going to find that formal training. You're not going to find those formal signatures to make that argument. So you wouldn't get a conviction on a Sobek or an Ed Krasenstein, who I think is an absolute moron. You absolutely 100% will get this on Comey. Okay. This is an easy charge against him.
So
now, the last thing I'll say is, if all we had was the image, this is an easy case. Now, one of the things that Blanche said there is for over a year, they've been looking into this. We know they took his devices. There's probably some signal chats and things that are going to go in there that, a lot of people making the argument it was a publicity tool to feed his book and things like that. So you're probably going to see supplemental information to reinforce it. But if all you had was just the picture, this is an easy conviction.
See, I agree with you that I think there's a lot more that's going to come out in this potentially. I would hope. I absolutely hope if they brought this case. Now, this is where we disagree, because you're saying prima facie on its face, it is easy. I'm saying it's impossible. Now, let me ask you this. You say you prosecuted all these cases. Have you ever prosecuted one of these cases where it wasn't the guy you prosecuted who put up the 86, whoever, somebody else wrote that?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever prosecuted?
And that's what I'm saying. That in the gang world, as long as it's a gang member, another gang member. So let's just say it was an everyday schmo. No, we wouldn't. Let's say it was a gang member's girlfriend. No, we wouldn't. But if it was a gang member that put it up, that took a picture of another gang member that put it up, absolutely we'll prosecute it. And this is what goes into the injunction of they have that knowledge.
Do you acknowledge that 86 has other context besides kill somebody?
Outside the law enforcement world? Outside the law enforcement world, yes.
Okay, well, you realize that James Comey is a private citizen.
Yep.
He is talking about an elected official.
Yep. And
canceling an elected official, impeachment, not voting for him, all sorts of ways that you can cancel him. And to acknowledge there is the possibility of kill somebody, 86, assassinate, whatever you want to call it. But that's the argument he's going to make. In the cases that you're arguing against gang members, you're not talking about necessarily an elected official. You're not talking about a private citizen who has no gang affiliation, no criminal history, no violent record. You're talking about somebody who is just a normal citizen walking down the beach and takes a picture of something somebody else did and posts it online. Hold on.
You're wrong about the normal citizen, though.
I'm not wrong about the normal citizen. Even though he's a retired FBI deputy director, he is still now a private citizen and has every right to the First Amendment protected political speech.
Our courts have never operated that way.
What are you talking about? Our courts don't operate that way.
I'm talking about the arrest warrant for me. Because he is a former law enforcement officer, because he is a former Marine, they use the argument of my careers against me. And that's the only part of my warrant that's legally justified.
You just made my point.
But what I'm saying is,
Alpha, you're not in prison. The case was dropped because it had
the case wasn't dropped because of that. The case was dropped because of the warrant. and I won't go into the specifics of it, but it was not dropped because that's the one part that's legally has precedence.
But your only example that you gave failed, and that's
okay,
you.
Then I'll use examples of other gang members where we go in and we show, hey, they have, for instance, now I'll say the tool because it's all smart cars, so we don't really use keys anymore. On rakes, that little metal part on the rake that curves, they break that little piece off. They do some manipulation to it. I'm not going to describe that, and they use that and you can use it as a key, and you can steal cars that way. Now, when you find some crony out there with that in his pocket, he's like, no, just collecting metal, bro. It's like, no, we know what that manipulation means. So then when we go to court, we show he is a past car thief. He is a past burglar. Because of that, he understands the tools that are used in theft.
And he also has a criminal record.
Okay, so the opposite is Comey doesn't need the criminal record. You're not arguing a criminal mindset. You're arguing Comey's criminal record is the fact that he was the director of the FBI. He has knowledge of what 86 means. Not only does he have knowledge, he has signed off on the institutional training for other gang officers within the FBI to teach other FBI agents what 86 means. So that his knowledge, the concept of it, is what we argue in past criminal behavior. So it's not that what knowing 86 is not criminal. It's the fact that he understands the application of that term. So he's not a normal citizen when it comes to how you judge that.
And so you're taking dual meanings of a term, 86.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
No,
are.
I'm not.
You are.
Because here's the thing. You would have to argue in court that 86 has other terms out there.
It does.
Because what they're going to show is they're going to show documents signed. This is my speculation.
Hold on. Now we're going away from prima facie now. I will agree with you 100%. If they can show documents that somehow Comey communicated that 86 means.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is they're going to show documents of law enforcement training manuals that have his signature or his name on it that clearly define what 86 means. There's no other formal document out there that provides a definition of 86. You have people's interpretations. You can have a Wikipedia thing out there. But if you want to talk about a formal definition, that formal definition that exists within the government, which is going to be police departments, the FBI department, the DOJ, that definition is very clear on what it means. And that's the document that's going to be used. The defense can argue, well, no, there's another formal definition out there, but there's not. There's not another formal definition that's out there that's utilized by the government or the courts.
If you ask the machine what 86 means, it will say to cancel something.
Okay, the machine is not something that's used in court.
But the machine, well, it's a broad interpretation. It's a public interpretation of what the term means, which means it has dual meanings. I'm not saying that 86 doesn't mean what you're saying it means in his scope of law enforcement.
If we ask the machine and everyday citizen what shall means, we're going to get 1,000 different explanations of what shall means. But if we look at what shall means in legal definitions, it's an absolute. So just because the civilian populace might have an interpretation, just because AI may have an interpretation, the only thing that matters in court is how does the court see this legal term? That's the only thing that matters. And when it comes to 86, because of the thousands of cases that exist in the court, it means take out.
Okay, so even if they are able to identify that, there is still a huge hill for them to climb. Now, again, we have no evidence. We have no idea what was presented to the grand jury. We won't get the probable cause or the criminal complaint. We won't get any of that
evidence.
No, we don't.
We know the minimum that was shown to them.
Right. We know the minimum. Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying the minimum, if that's all that was shown to them, this is an open and shut case.
I disagree with you strongly, but we'll see. We'll see. President Trump gave us a little hint here, and this was actually kind of interesting. He's invoking the mob here.
Social media post with seashells that said 8647. Do you really think that he was endangering your life or threatening your life with that?
Well, if anybody knows anything about crime, they know 86. You know what 86? It's a mob term for kill 'em. You know, you ever see the movies? 86 'em. The mobster says to one of his wonderful associates, 86 'em. That means kill 'em. it's I think of it as a mob term. I don't know. People think of it as something having to do with disappearing, but the mob uses that term to say when they want to kill somebody, they say 86, the son of a gun. I'm trying to keep the language nice and clear. They don't use that term, son of a gun. They use another term. But that's a mob term for kill him. Yeah.
But do you really think your life was in danger?
Probably. I don't know. You know, based on what I'm seeing out there, yeah, the people like Comey have created tremendous danger, I think, for politicians and others. Comey is a dirty cop. He's a very dirty cop. He cheated on the elections. He tried to help Hillary Clinton, as you know. He dismissed a lot of things that he should have proceeded with. I wasn't involved, but he should have proceeded with. No, he's a dirty cop. He's a crooked man. Yeah.
So those are, and I know you got to get out of here now, but those are the things I want to see him investigated and indicted for, and they may come. And again, I think we'll see, hopefully we'll see more, because, I do have some faith in Blanche. A lot of people are down on him, or were down on him as deputy, but I got some faith in him. So we'll see what comes of this. But again, we can make a friendly wager. Well, I don't want to make a friendly wager because there's still a lot of stuff that could be exposed on this that we're not privy to.
You can get another corrupt federal judge. You can do things. There's a lot of things that can happen in this process. Yeah. I'm just arguing that it's an easy case based on if this was Jack Posobiec, or this was the Ed Krasenstein, or what's the other lady that had it in the back of her while she was doing a podcast,
Gretchen Whitmer.
Gretchen Whitmer. If it's one of them, I argued I would sign off on your argument. I would. But given that this is Comey and a Comey specific charge, it completely changes everything. And then two things real quick before I head on out. Something that Blanche said that was interesting is everybody was shitting on Pam Bondi, but he said this investigation's been going on for a year. I didn't bring it. The grand jury brought the indictments now. So it's the timing of the grand jury indictment. So that was something very important to pay attention to. Outside the other part you highlighted, there was other things that were shown to them. What are those other things? There's that. Two is on April 30th of 2020. So 6 years ago, exactly today, President Trump posted this on X. Dirty cop James Comey got caught. Almost a 6-year delta to the day. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
It's interesting. Again, I barring no significant introduction of communications that Comey explicitly said, made those comments, this never makes it into a courtroom. We'll take that friendly wager. I'm not going to wager anything of value because there's a lot that can change one way or the other.
Here's why I would say it never makes its way into a courtroom, because Comey understands the argument that's going to be made against him the same way I do. He knows the court of public opinion may be confused about all this, but he knows what I know. He knows exactly how this gets argued in court, and he knows he loses that 100% of the time. So given that it's only a 10-year sentence, and these are not one sentence after the other, these would run, I believe it's concurrent, is the way they say it in court. So you're looking at a 10-year sentence max. He has zero criminal history. You're going to see this get plead out to a conviction, and it'll get dropped. And I don't even think he gets a day in court. It'll probably be probation. And before everybody gets sad, they're not trying to use this to put Comey in jail. They're using this because this is going to be a predicate crime. And it's going to be a predicate crime because of what you just heard Trump said. This is something that a mob term uses. Why did Trump use the word mob?
RICO.
Back to Giuliani.
Yep.
What did Giuliani research? RICO. And in RICO cases, criminal enterprises, those get argued the way gangs get argued, the way I did. And then all of a sudden, when they go to say, well, are all these people part of this criminal enterprise? And I'm very interested in what they're going to name the criminal enterprise, because criminal enterprises actually have a quote unquote gang name. So will it be the cabal? Will it be the deep state? I don't know. This can be interesting. But when they go to define this criminal enterprise, you got to have predicates. And so a lot of these cases that you're seeing, like what's going to go on down in Southern District of Florida with Brennan, don't get sad when you're just like, well, why didn't they give him 20 years or 40 years? These are predicates, and these are predicates that are going to be used to establish the criminal enterprise in order for the bigger charges that are coming down the pipeline. So you're probably just going to see a simple plea that comes out of this. The key is a conviction.
I will say no conviction. There you go.
All right.
Dismissed. Charges off. All right, you got to get out. And the chat is loving it. Oh, Alpha's right. Alpha. There's nobody right in this case. Nobody's right in this argument right now.
You guys
There
are
is no right because nothing has happened. There is no end game yet, so nobody can. You might feel like Alpha's right, but Alpha's not right. I'm not right.
I am 100% right. Now, none of us know the outcome, but
only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Absolutely right on this one. Now, the outcome, I agree with you. The outcome, who knows? Who knows? You could be right. I could be right on the outcome. But as far as what's going on, 100% right. You guys, do me a solid. Drop this guy a bunch of Rumble rant since he's going to hold the show on his own for the next hour. And I'll catch you guys tonight on Sit Rep.
All right. See you tonight, brother. All right. There we have it. All right. He is not right. He is not right. And all you guys in the chat, you guys don't know who's right yet because we have no outcome. We have no outcome. Until we have an outcome, we don't know who's right or wrong, period. That's all there is to it. All right, let's move on. That was a fun segment. I can take the flack. I don't care. You guys want the hopium. I get it. It makes you feel good. I love feeling good too. All right, I want to play this clip here just because I thought this was interesting. Bongino talking. It was a slow news day. I mean, the biggest news things we just talked about. The Supreme Court, a couple decisions there, the arguments, and the Comey thing, continuing on with that. But I thought this was really interesting. Dan Bongino basically laying out the story of canary traps. We've talked about canary traps many times. Me and Alpha have. We've talked about them on daily, but check this out.
But listen, I will never be the same, and I'm being as serious as a stroke right now. Look, I'm scared, man. Like I know what I did, and I'm proud of my work, and I'm proud of what me and Cash accomplished in the past year. Beyond proud. I know what we did. I know what's coming. I know what I started. I know what I laid out, and I know it's all, you saw a lot of these cases coming out over the past few days even. But don't think for a second that I don't think every day, and this is what's really sad, and this is why I know, and I never thought this after reading that enough Friday night, that they're going to come for me. And listen, man, it's not a sob story. I knew what I was getting into. But it happened to the president, and he went through just the worst, just destruction of his civil liberties I've ever seen. But I say to my wife all the time, I know, Sean, I can look you in the face as a friend, tell you and your millions of viewers and listeners, I promise you everything I did with a dotted I and a crossed T. I brought in my own attorney from the outside, person I trusted, a wonderful, wonderful person. I said, no, everything is going to be by the book. Everything. I'm confident in that. And you know what? It don't matter. They'll rewrite the book, just like they did for President Trump. And I said to my wife, I said, I got a 14-year-old. The presidency could change. I hope it doesn't in a little over 2 years. You don't think on election night, if we lose, like it's not going through my head, like they're going to send some thugs to my house? I was never the same after that, because after reading what I read about how many people did this to President Trump, this Russia hoax, collusion, crossfire hurricane bullshit, and not a single person stopped them, I'm terrified that they're just not going to do the right thing when they're in charge.
All right. That wasn't the actual clip. So there was a clip there where he says, we leaked information. I told somebody just something stupid about where I'm going for dinner or whatever. And I knew exactly who it was. And this has been a form. And where is that other clip? I don't know where it went, but that's what they've been doing. I think me and Alpha both agree on this, that they've been doing for a while. When you read some of these sources familiar with the situation type reports, that's essentially what they're doing. To the clip that he's talking about here, this is where the Comey thing comes for me, and political protected speech and getting around that. And Alpha brought up, and it's kind of unfair he doesn't get to defend himself here because he had to go, but he'll have a chance tonight on Sit Rep. But I'm not going to, it's not anything against him here, but he talks about his case and how that was done against him. And, he had that tweet out there. when he did one of the better interviews, like him or not, but one of the better interviews he's done about his story was when Alpha interviewed with Kyle Seraphin. And Kyle goes through step by step Alpha's tweet and why that's not considered a threat. And when you and keep in mind, I understand people are going to be like, oh, well, you're talking about a president. Well, Alpha's threat was against the government, was against the federal government. Allegedly, that's what they alleged. Of course, we all know it wasn't, because we have brains. Apparently, we have very partisan brains, but we have brains. This is the same situation there. The threat from Comey, and again, this is barring that there's no crazy communications that he had about planning an actual attempt, in which case the charges would be much higher than what they are right now. But it would be conspiracy, for one, would be listed as one of the charges. And you would have co-defendants or co-conspirators in this. But we didn't get that in the indictment. That's the prima facie. The indictment is lacking for me. But you're not able to articulate that threat. You're not able to accomplish that threat. There's no means of accomplishing that threat. There's a lot of standards that I don't think it gets to. So again, we'll drop it. It's not there for me. It's not there for me yet. It could get there. And because it's a grand jury, we're not going to know much until the court filings start pouring in. And then is when the fun part begins. Be Happy says he found him from that interview. The interview Kyle did with Alpha was very good. Me and Alpha have done several interviews on this. And I thought those were pretty good. I don't think anybody got the interviews better than me and Kyle did on Alpha and getting his story down. And Alpha's story is absolutely heartbreaking with a beautiful ending. And of course, Alpha's a badass for standing in the gap and never backing down from that. And, I can remember talking with him about this many times off air and, between me and him. And the day that it happened, we were on Y-Chromes. The day they dropped the case, me and Cam were getting ready to go on Y-Chromes, and he called me as we were going live, and I broke down in tears. And I wasn't even the one being persecuted, and I broke down in tears, had tears bawling, man. Okay, let's get into this story here. CNBC: Fed holds rates steady, but with the highest level of dissent since 1992, 34 years. This is likely Jerome Powell's last Board of Governors meeting or chair meeting as the chair of the board. Policymakers, and I'm just going to read the highlights on this because financial is not, this is not our thing here. An unusually divided Federal Reserve held its key interest rate steady. Policymakers are grappling with the challenge of balancing the threats of persistent inflation and a softening labor market. The meeting likely Jerome Powell's last at the helm. However, he has decided to stay on the board of governors. It says an unusually divided Federal Reserve held its key interest rate steady as policymakers grappled with the policy impact of persistent inflation and awaited looming leadership transitions. They're holding the rates between 3.5% and 3.75%. Markets have been pricing in 100% chance of no change. And then, of course, for the first time since they dissented since 1992, the vote was 8-4. Usually they're all in line. It also mentions that it's the first time in, I think, since the 1950s that Powell's going to stay on. He's not just going to ride off into the sunset. He's going to stay on the Board of Governors. And this is what Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent had to say about that.
Secretary.
We don't need to listen to them on that speed.
We look forward to the Kevin Warsh era at the Fed. I know you've been a big supporter. Unfortunately, today, ungentlemanly, Jay Powell has decided to stay on as a governor. It's only the second time in 113 years. I don't know why. Let's just say, why did he have to do it? Why not just leave it up to Kevin Warsh for a new era?
Larry, I want to come back to the Warsh Fed, but I will say it's highly unusual what former chair, soon to be former chair Powell did. And Larry, to be clear, the last time that a Fed chair stayed on the board, it was at the request of the president.
Yeah.
And one thing I can promise you is President Trump did not request for Jay Powell to stay. I think it's highly unusual for someone who says he's an institutionalist and cares about norms at the Fed. This is a violation of all Federal Reserve norms. And I've got to tell you also, Larry, I think it is an insult to Kevin Warsh, Mickey Bowman, and Chris Waller to think that these other Republican nominees do not care about the institution of the Fed, and that he alone can maintain the integrity of the Fed. We had the worst inflation that perhaps in our country's history, certainly in 47 or 50 years under this chairman. And I think the good news is today, Kevin Warsh cleared committee. He's going to be confirmed. He will be the new Fed chair on time, May 15th, May 16th. And I think it's going to be a new day at the Fed. And again, all President Trump wanted was accountability. We're going to get an IG report on the building. That's all he ever asked for.
Yes, sir.
And I think that we will have a great monetary policy. I think we will have great management in terms of the regulatory and of the facilities.
All right. So Powell is saying that he's going to stay on just to make sure that the renovations are finished and his term ends in 2028 on the Fed. So he's out on May 15th, I believe. He's out as the chair, but his term on the board ends in the 2028. And so he's saying he's going to stay on until then to make sure the renovations get done, which is very interesting that and to make sure the investigation, is done, which Jeanine Pirro announced last week or 2 weeks ago that they're dropping the investigation. So that's kind of interesting. It's almost like this was kind of foreseen. I do want to note again that we are going to be covering The Creature from Jekyll Island on Badlands Book Club starting today at 2 p.m. I'm trying to do some things in the background here. Today at 2 p.m. The Creature from Jekyll Island. And there we go. Mad Mr. Fox. If you're so confident, bet something of value. I can't bet something of value because there's going to be a lot of change in this case. My argument is prima facie. And that means that as it sits right now, that indictment will not hold up unless there's some huge evidence, which there very well could be. In fact, I believe that there most likely is some big evidence, but you gotta give the people something, man. Got to give the people something. Justice Department, Associated Press, moves to roll back gun regulations as Senate confirms the new ATF chief. This could be good. This is one of the things that's been like wildly impressive so far is the Bruen decision. This isn't talking about the Bruen decision, but the Bruen decision in general has been like just a complete and total letdown, right? This idea that we're supposed to have all of our Second Amendment rights in the context of our founding fathers and the framers of our Constitution and the early lineage of our country, and we have not gotten anywhere near that stuff yet. In fact, it's still kind of shitty, if you ask me. It's not getting worse. Excuse me, it's not getting worse. Wow, what the heck was that? It's not getting worse, but it's not getting much better. But here's a move. It says among more than the 30 changes is the proposed repeal of the 2024 Biden rule that sought to force thousands more firearms dealers to run background checks on buyers at gun shows or other places outside of brick and mortar stores. In other words, the notorious gun show loophole, one of the biggest myths that I've ever heard, promulgated by the mainstream media. The gun show loophole, which allowed guns to be sold by unlicensed dealers who do not perform background checks to ensure the potential buyer is not legally prohibited from having a firearm. That's their definition, and that's the only thing we're going to get into with the AP on this. The gun show loophole is utter nonsense, okay? And again, I can't speak for many other states. I've only been to gun shows in a few states. I have purchased guns in Florida. I think I bought one in Texas a long time ago, but if you go to a gun show and you try and buy a gun from any of the tables that they have set up in there, they have FFLs. You have to fill out a 4473. You have to go through the whole process. Now, there's certain like antiques and stuff like that. What they're talking about, and they never mention this, is private sales that take place outside of the gun show. So you'll be walking away and somebody will be like, hey, you didn't like anything in there? Well, I've got a Glock 19. You want to buy it? Private, person to person. And they'll be like, yeah, sure. And then you don't have to fill it out. But when they say unlicensed dealers, there's no such thing. That's like saying the black market. I mean, there is such thing, but that would be the black market. And that would be like, if you're dealing guns, you can't go and sell all of your guns or a certain number of guns. You're going to get flagged. If you go out there and you're selling, 20, 30 guns and you're not an FFL, you don't have an FFL license, you're illegal. It's not unlicensed dealers, it's illegal dealers. And so the whole gun show loophole is one of the stupidest things that I've ever heard. But here's something that I do like. AmmoLand put this out. The most obvious win for gun owners in the new ATF proposal is the removal formally of the Biden-era pistol brace rule. ATF is proposing to rescind the 2023 stabilizing brace regulatory changes after multiple federal courts found that the rule violated the APA. We talked about Loper Bright yesterday, the Chevron deference and the ability for these bureaucracies to go beyond the scope of the law and make their own law, essentially, because this is something that the ATF put out there. The ATF created that law, and they call it a regulation, but it comes with a criminal sanction. It's got criminal penalties. If you get caught with a short-barreled rifle, well, that's law. That's the NFA, which needs to be repealed as well. But if you get caught with the pistol brace, you can go to prison for that. Who made that law? Not Congress. The ATF did. The ATF does not have the authority to make law. That's the pullback from Loper Bright in that, a part of it. Let's get into this story here. It's a shame we didn't have Alpha for this one because he would have loved this story. DOJ charges Mexican officials, including the governor of Sinaloa, with drug trafficking. The reason he would have loved this is this would allude to the cooperation kind of theory that he's putting out there with the Comey indictment, because this is, I think, the result of cooperation from El Chapo's kid, El Chapito. The DOJ has charged the governor of Sinaloa and 9 other current and former Mexican officials with drug trafficking, accusing them of helping to import massive amounts of narcotics into the United States in exchange for bribes and political influence. The 34-page indictment, prosecutors charged 10 officials with assisting the Sinaloa cartel in shipping fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and meth across the United States border. Jay Clayton, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said, quote, as the indictment lays bare, the Sinaloa cartel and other drug trafficking organizations like it would not operate as freely or successfully without corrupt politicians and law enforcement officials on their payroll. Let these charges send a clear message to all officials around the globe who work with narco traffickers. No matter your title or position, we are committed to bringing you to justice. Now, let's pause right there before we get into the work, in uncovering this by getting somebody, the Guzman, to flip. He acknowledges there that this couldn't have been possible without the help of politicians and law enforcement officials, as he's charging 10 people in Mexico who likely will never see a U.S. courtroom, because Mexico's not going to send these people. Maybe it happens. Maybe. But, barring them crossing over into the United States and getting caught here, who knows what's actually going to happen? What context does what weight does our law have against Mexican officials, right? We have the case with Maduro, right? There's other cases where these people have been brought in. Juan Orlando Hernandez, former Honduran president, he was in prison. But likely, I don't know that this will result in anything. My issue is you acknowledge the politicians and law enforcement that are taking bribes, they're taking cuts. They're here in the United States. Let's get some of those people out of politics. Let's get some of those people into prison. Is that too much to ask? Here's the part that we like. The defendants, Ruben Roca Moya, the governor of Sinaloa, is not in custody. He conspired with leadership in the Sinaloa cartel run by the Chapitos, the sons of the infamous drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, I can never say that, Loera, to win the 2021 gubernatorial election. Roca met with the cartel several times during his campaign, providing members with the names and addresses of his political opponents to intimidate them into dropping out. The cartel also stole ballots and ballot boxes for the opposing party, helping Roca win an electoral victory. I want to see that same push in the United States to get our own government officials that are corrupt and tied up into this and get those people locked up, man. All right. Today's going to be a short show. Let's jump into this story here from the Hill. House approves reauthorization of warrantless spy powers The vote was 235 to 191, cleared the House chambers, now goes on to the Senate. The measure passed the House, including modest reforms to the program, including allowing a larger pool of lawmakers to review information presented to the FISA courts, and extended 702 for 3 years instead of 18 months, the request that was made by President Trump. 147 Democrats voted to renew the Section 702 in 2024. This year, just 42, less than 1/3, voted for it. Now, on the flip side, in the last one, 88 Republicans opposed FISA when it was considered. This time, just 22 did, so 1/4. So isn't that interesting? When the Democrats were in power, 147 approved. Now that they don't have power, 42 disapprove. And on the flip side, 88 Republicans disapproved back then. Now only 22 disapprove. It's almost like they don't have principle. They just have partisanship. The 22 that stood their ground and the 42 Democrats that stood their ground on this particular issue, hat tip to you guys for standing up against this. Standing up against this until they remove warrantless searches on American citizens, and especially beyond the scope of that engagement. We've talked about this before. They can survey or surveil you without a warrant, as long as there's an interaction with somebody foreign that they have under surveillance. You don't know this. You could be unknowing. You could think you're conducting legitimate business with a legitimate business person, but they're under FISA, which is probably not too difficult to do to get a foreigner under FISA, right? They can't really defend themselves because they don't get to go to court to defend themselves. And so you get them under FISA, then it opens up the door for you to spy on Americans. This is what they did to the Trump admin in 2016. And then you end up getting spied on, and it's not just spying on what you're saying with that foreign entity. It goes well beyond that scope. So it needs a lot of reform. And that's why I'm saying that hat tip to the 22 Republicans and the 42 Democrats that have stood their ground on this and voted no both times. Una Panuna Banca chiming in on this. John Thune said he will not support the central bank digital currency ban in any of the legislation we send over. He also said no on Save America. Now, the reason that that's big is because Una Panuna and Mike Lee and a bunch of others were arguing, hey, put the Save America Act in FISA and then it will pass. Take a little bit of good with a little bit of bad, with a lot of bad, and let's get it done, right? I referenced the Benjamin Franklin quote, a little bit of liberty for a little bit of security deserves neither. This is, very similar, but we got none. We're stuck holding, well, I'm not going to cite the Marine Corps term, but we got stuck holding our something in our hands, and it's the something below the waist, Marine Corps term. And also the central bank digital currency is concerning as well. Said he will not support a central bank digital currency ban of any kind. All right, Tim Burchett, confirming that he was there when John Thune said that to Una Panuna, and I will land that there. By the way, Alpha and Josh did a really good interview with Tim Burchett. I think it was on not the last one, but the one before. What is it? Sunday nights, DEF CON? I think it's Sunday night. I just watch them on replay when I get a chance to. All right, Mom Donnie calling for more money. This is hilarious. Because, obviously socialism, communism doesn't work. We've all been saying this. We've been screaming this. Trump was screaming this. That's why he backed Cuomo, because Cuomo was the most likely person to beat Mamdani in a fake election. But he backed him a lot. Got a lot of shit for that. But socialism doesn't work. But Mamdani actually, when I first started listening to the speech, like the first 15 seconds, I was like, okay. And then he just went full retard.
New York City faces a budget.
Whoa. Again, we definitely don't need coked up Mamdani. Not saying he's on coke, but he was talking at 1.5 speed, which sounds like he's coked out.
New York City faces a budget crisis of a historic magnitude. We inherited a deficit larger than any since the Great Recession. Years of mismanagement and chronic underbudgeting, alongside a structural imbalance between...
That's where he lost me. Years of mismanagement. I'm there because of under budgeting. And I'm like, nope, you lost me. You lost me. You don't go in debt because you don't spend enough. That's brain dead logic. But let's keep playing it.
What New York City sends to the state and what we receive in return have taken a toll. We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue, and we need a structural reset in our relationship with the state. That is the only way to meet our legal obligation to pass a balanced budget, and to do so without imposing a financial burden onto the backs of working people. I'm glad to partner with Speaker Menon as we call upon Albany and deliver a balanced budget. Together, we are extending the executive budget deadline from this coming Friday until May 12th, because a crisis of this scale cannot be solved without state action. I want to be clear. We are not simply asking others to act. New York City is doing our part. We are committed to governing with the fiscal responsibility this moment demands.
Okay, let's pause there, and because he's talking about balancing a budget by spending a lot more, which means if you're going to spend a lot more, and he said we're under budgeted. Right? He said that to start the thing, mismanagement and under budgeting, meaning we're not spending enough. We're going to get into the spending thing because if you spend more, what do you have to do? If this goes up and you need to balance it, you have to take in more. You have to take in more to spend more. It's basic math. Basic math. Socialists don't always get basic math. Communists don't always get basic math. But dude, is that his wife standing next to him? Have you ever seen the movie White Chicks with the Wayans brothers? Holy crap.
Speaker Menon and I have already identified meaningful savings, and we will continue.
I don't know who that is, but she does not look real. She doesn't look real. All right. This is an old post from February, an old article. New York City social services spending has ballooned 50% since COVID. State budget chief says needs to have guardrails. Let's just read some of the ballooning. Mamdani ruffled feathers across the state last week when he gave Governor Kathy Hochul a stunning ultimatum. Tax the rich or he will raise property taxes by nearly 10%. I bet they love that in New York. They voted for this. You guys voted for this. I'm allegedly voting is gay. And well, voting isn't gay. Voting is fake right now. We got to clean that up. And I am not in the party that says don't vote. Okay. Everybody get out there and vote, but we still got to work to clean it up. Okay. You can sleep in your room while it's dirty. You just got to clean it up eventually. Mamdani ruffled feathers. The stark binary choice came as the Democratic Socialist mayor unveiled a massive $127 billion preliminary budget proposal. He argued the hike was necessary to plug an estimated $5.4 billion hole in the budget. Jump down here. Since the pandemic broke out, the Department of Social Services budget alone has swelled by 40%, hitting an eye-watering $14.2 billion social services. And, you know, it says the pandemic broke out, but let's also remember that after the pandemic broke out, so did the southern border. So did the migration crisis. And as bad as the pandemic was for the economy, the immigration crisis completely and totally exacerbated that, made it far worse, exaggerated that. The Department of Homeless Service budget has more than doubled since 2019, reaching a record $4.4 billion in the mayor's budget proposal for 2027. Let me pull up this real quick because I was playing with the machine on Mamdani and on New York City specifically. And New York City spends approximately $15 to $16 billion annually on social services. Compared to other states, it is the most on social services, both in total dollars and per capita. Think about that. Both in total dollars and per capita. New York City's social services spending is the most. $1,800 per resident. Think about that. $1,800 if you live in New York City, and that's not your whole tax burden. That's not your federal tax burden. That's not your state tax burden. That's not your city tax burden. That is just how much you as a citizen of New York City are spending for social services. Okay, so think of it this way. At the beginning of the year, you still have all your other taxes, income tax, federal income tax. You still have all the other taxes you pay. But out of those taxes, $1,800 of every single citizen, that's the average, meaning if you are in the upper bracket, it's going to be much more. It's going to be much more. And you're going to go out there and just like handing out $1,800. And if you make, over $150,000 a year, maybe you're handing out $4,000. Anybody want to do that? So that other people, especially a lot of them, illegals, people here on TPS, you guys go out there and just hand that money out to everybody. Just keep it up. Just keep it up. Everybody knew that Mamdani thing was going to be a disaster, but hey, expose, you got to show them. This is an old video, man. This video here, speaking of New York City and the crime and just how bad it's getting. By the way, the mass exodus of people that are business owners and wealthy people, the mass exodus of those people is going to be even more detrimental to the lower and middle class because somebody's got to pick up that burden. Mamdani's not going to stop spending. New York City is not going to stop spending. And it's not exclusive to Mamdani. Eric Adams did it. What's the guy before him? The guy that was the cheeseburger. Hey, is that a cheeseburger you got there? What was De Blasio? De Blasio. They all did it. They all did it. It's nothing new. Mamdani's just making it a lot worse. Check this out. This was May of 2025. This guy here talking about the fear of getting killed in his bodega.
Spoke with Eyewitness News a year ago, saying he worried about violence against bodega workers he'd seen on social media.
People got shot, killed. Sometimes you got robbed, and the police never responds quick.
Tonight, the organization is wondering if the person who shot Abdul Salah was someone who shouldn't have been on the street itself.
There you go. That guy a year ago was saying, how bad the crime is, that he's worried he's going to get shot, and bam, he got shot. He got shot and killed outside of his store. Great job, Mamdani. New York City looking great, looking great. I think that's all we're going to cover for today. We'll probably, because I got to prepare. This Thursday's probably going to turn into another short day now that we got book club coming up at 2. So got to get to work on that. Got a couple rants here. I'll jump into these real quick here. Isaiah 53, gerrymandering supercharge any voter fraud scheme already in place. It is the signal that voter fraud is in place and pervasive enough to subvert an entire state. Yeah. Gerrymandering, redistricting is the foundation of the voter fraud. Yeah, I'm with you. PSA Farm Girl, yes, CannCon. We Republicans here in Connecticut have no representation. Check out how long and how many illegals we have. Also, check out how many NGOs we have. Yes, Connecticut gave illegals driver's licenses. Yep, a lot of states do. And guess what? You know better than anybody, PS Farm Girl. And I think I said PSA Farm Girl or PS Farm Girl. You know better than anybody. Once they interact with the DMV or any other government, automatic voter registration. Whether you're illegal or not, it happens. It happens. Ryan CRF, remember how Thomas Crooks trained at a shooting range with federal agencies? I wonder if that will come up with the Comey indictment. Ooh, that is very interesting, Ryan. That is very interesting. The only thing about that is Crooks predates Comey. The 8647 messaging, it predates that. But dude, that would be very, very interesting. Very interesting. Good comment there. Good comment. And again, I do think that more is going to come out on this, but on its face, I'm not very pleased with that indictment, especially given all the things that Comey has done. It's got to be more than that, man. And not just more in terms of the 86. Get well beyond that. And, to Alpha's point, and I do agree with Alpha that, they may have brought him in to shake him down. That's what they tried to do with the first one. When the first indictment, I still have the newspaper somewhere. I think it's like right over there. I still have the first newspaper indicted from the New York Post. I have the physical copy. And that was for lying to Congress. Again, when I heard that one, I was like, this is legit. You're going to be able to prosecute him for this, but it's not what we need. But then when that gets dismissed and all of a sudden, they do it on a technicality that Halligan was not the U.S. attorney in New Jersey. So she's out. And and the Tish James and the Comey indictments go away. And so then what do? You bring them back and you charge them with something else. I can get behind that. But if James Comey goes to prison for posting a picture, for that specific picture, that is a huge issue with me. I have a huge issue with that based on the First Amendment. And I'm concerned about exactly what Bongino said in that clip about how it's going to be weaponized when it's no longer Trump in charge, when it's no longer the GOP in charge, or when it's a GOP, establishment hack that gives zero shits about anything and just goes scorched earth. But especially when it's the Democrats, because they have a tendency to take things and make them 10 times more and more egregious than they were previously, or just to initiate it, right? They started the political fight. I agree with that. However, at some point, you have to fight back and fight back justly and get them for the just things that they did. And to me, that is not one. That's just plain and simple. Comey did so much more, and there's so much more that we can get him for. And we'll see what happens. It is still fascinating to watch all of this unfold. I'm here for it. You can pick your sides. That's fine, but nobody's right or wrong yet. We just don't know because there's no conclusion. You can't have a right or wrong without a conclusion. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I hope you guys tune into the new book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, all about the Federal Reserve. Me and Ash will talk. I don't even know if we're going to read it or if we're just going to discuss it, but we'll get it figured out. 2 p.m. right here on Badlands. And then, of course, tonight at 9 p.m., Alpha and I will be talking with a brother of mine that wrote a fantastic book about our experiences in Afghanistan. And that's going to be a lot of fun as well. Thank you guys again. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Appreciate all you guys sticking around. And we will see you later.
I don't say this lightly. This lotion changes people.
My knuckles would actually start to crack. Started using the soft disclosure lotion, and I am very impressed. Even within just a few days, I've noticed a tremendous difference.
That's not a script. That's what happens when something actually works.
It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yeah, that line keeps coming up. Because when you don't use it, your skin starts acting up.
Every single ingredient in soft disclosure is intentionally chosen. There's no filler ingredients. It is not like this BS product where they have a bunch of ingredients. Every ingredient listed is for a purpose.
Over 65-star reviews for the lotion alone. Not influencers, not actors, just people whose skin finally shut up. Soft disclosure lotion. Once you try it, you'll understand why people won't stop talking about it. Visit softdisclosure.com and use code BADLANDS and get 10% off.